Good morning, my name is Damien Ivory. I run a small RSP out of Tasmania called Lontel, and today I want to talk to you about the technology upgrade process, or technology choice. Now, I received an email from Charmian Gord, who you may have seen appear on an ABC program, I think about a year ago, and she was describing the tech upgrade process and how she felt it was very unfair that when she got her upgrade, she effectively had to to subsidize everybody else's connection on her street. And I want to explain why that's the case and why I think it has real problems, or it creates big problems for the whole tech upgrade process. So when fibre to the node was introduced by Malcolm Turnbull some back around 2013, one of his promises was that people could choose to upgrade to full fibre, the full fibre to the premises, if they were willing to pay for it. He said at the time he expected the cost to be around about $2,000 or $3,000, because at the time that was roughly the difference between a fibre to the node connection, or what it would cost NBN anyway, and a fibre to the premises connection. However, that's not how NBN implemented it. What NBN did is they said, we're rolling out fibre to the node, and if somebody wants a fibre to the premises upgrade, we will charge them everything it costs us to do that. So if there's a whole lot of infrastructure that needs to be upgraded, then they will get the full charge of that upgrade, regardless of the fact that once that upgrade has been done to the infrastructure, everybody else will then be able to hook into that at no charge to them, or they wouldn't certainly have to pay for that infrastructure. Now, this makes sense from NBN's point of view, because they had been instructed by the government to get out of the business of rolling out infrastructure to support fibre to the premises. But there were some ridiculous situations. We had a client in Devonport, up on the northwest coast of Tasmania, who wanted to do a fibre upgrade, and there's a bit of technology called an OLT. Now, that sits in the local exchange, typically, or somewhere towards the customer anyway, and it drives the fibre line, which is then used to deliver the service to a customer. Now, each OLT supports probably about, I think, 32 customers, certainly a number of them, but they're expensive bits of kit, about $100,000, I believe. So we were in the ridiculous situation where a client put in for the tech upgrade, and he was going to be charged by NBN about $120,000. And they admitted that $100,000 of that or so was to install an OLT. Well, that's clearly was way too expensive for our client, and they didn't go ahead. Now, since then, NBN have been rolling out OLTs into the various exchanges on spec, if you like. So I believe that has improved. But you still get the issue that a lot of people believe that the fibre being delivered to the node is usable for anything. A bit like electricity. You've got electricity coming to a certain point, and if you want to hook into that electrical point, you just run a wire to that point and off you go. Fibre doesn't work like that. The fibre that's delivered to the node uses a very different technology than the one that's used for fibre to the premises. Basically, the big difference is that OLT. You don't use an OLT for a fibre to the node. I won't go into the technical details, but the net result is that doing an upgrade is they have to take the fibre significantly further than back to just to the node. So what that means is that if you do that run, then typically they'll run at least a 12 core, or if not a 100 core or the like, of fibres along your street. And anybody else who wants to connect to fibre to the premises can just now hook into one of those other fibres. And of course, so the cost for the upgrade for them is significantly cheaper. So you end up with this first mover disadvantage. If you're the first person to request an upgrade, you get charged all these costs. And so of course there's a big disincentive. This creates issues then when groups attempt to form to sort of share these costs. So a group of maybe 4 or 5 or so houses that are all relatively close to each other might get together and say, all right, well, if we share the costs, then the cost for each of us will go down. The problem you get then is there's going to be a few canny people who notice, hold on a second, if I don't join this group, I won't have to pay for that bit, and I'll only have to pay the amount once they've done their upgrade to connect me up, which will be significantly cheaper. I won't have to pay for all that infrastructure. So once people realise that, they sort of pull out. Somebody pulls out of the group, so now there are less people in the group sharing that infrastructure, and so the costs per person go up. So there's an even bigger disincentive to stay as a member of the group, so more people drop out. And this is exactly the situation we had in a place called Breadalbane, just near Launceston Airport, where we had a number of businesses who were attempting to get together to share these costs. And after about 3 or 4 months, frankly, the whole process just collapsed, and the upgrade did not go ahead, and they are left on fibre to the node with all its issues. Then another issue is that when you do that upgrade, and Charmian Gord pointed this out, is if you're looking for high speeds, unless you're living in Tasmania, because we offer higher speeds than 140, in fact we go all the way up to a gigabit, then you're only going to be able to get access to the speeds that your local RSP, or not your local, but the RSPs that are servicing your area. And we unfortunately don't cover all of Australia, and that's the subject of another video. So Charmian pointed out, having done all this upgrade, she can still only get 140. Now, sure, she's on fibre to the premises, it's a much more reliable connection, she's guaranteed 140 as opposed to the slightly strange sort of up to that you get on fibre to the node. But it's hardly a big incentive to spend all that money if at the end of the day you're still only getting 140. And this then leads to another question she asked, is would we be willing to finance an upgrade of a whole area? She pointed out there were some industrial areas that could definitely do with it. And this gets to the nub of the whole private versus public investment in infrastructure. As I said earlier, the cost per person, the cost per premises, is significantly lower if you do the whole area, if everybody gets it, regardless of whether they wanted it or not. And this is the basis for another form of upgrades, which is called the area switch, which NBN put out to say, all right, well, if you want a whole area, and the area is typically defined based on the existing node or something like that, then we can do that upgrade for about $2,000 per premises. But everybody's got to take part. So councils had a couple of goes at it. Now, if you think about it, what councils are essentially saying is everybody gets the upgrade and they're paying for it through their rates. And that creates issues because people will say, well, I don't want the fibre to the premises upgrade, I don't want to pay for it, and I certainly don't want my rates to go into to upgrading it and the like. So you get these sort of issues. So really, the only way you can do this upgrade is essentially for somebody else to pay for it. And so you don't get a choice about whether you get the upgrade, but at least you don't have to pay for it. And this is why publicly funded upgrades are so much easier to do and are much cheaper. But then you get into this issue of, well, should my taxes be going into this, or should all the users who actually want it pay for it? And that, I think, is really the issue with the whole tech upgrade process, and why the original fibre to the premises rollout would have worked so well, is because it's kind of very socialist in a way. Everybody gets it. There's no sort of there's no opt-in or opt-out. Well, there wasn't actually, to be fair to the fibre to the premises, there was an opt-out, but if you wanted any fixed line services, you'd have to have it. Either way, you wouldn't have to pay for it directly except through your taxes. So whether you got it or not, you still pay for it, really. So this is the issue with fibre with the tech switch upgrade, and I believe it's why so few of them have gone ahead, and why at the end of the day this is not going to be the way we get our upgrade. At some level, if we want to have an upgrade to our network, really the government or a very large body has to pay for it and find a way of getting the returns on that investment. But it's complicated and it involves a lot of politics, and this is why NBN has been such a political matter, because the Liberal Party is fundamentally against, as a core principle, this idea of public ownership and public funding of infrastructure projects like this. So there we go with the tech switch upgrade process. I think it's complicated, it's expensive, and it will never be the route that we use to get the full upgrade. All right, leave comments and subscribe. See you in the next video.